Hey guys, what's up? It's Dave, and I wanted to make a video actually right after our Disney trip about the Disney trip, about what we did, the trip up there, where we stayed, that kind of thing, and then the trip back, and our stops, our tips, that kind of thing, because we learned a lot on this trip. We learned a lot on every trip, but I feel on this trip we kind of like nailed it down a little bit. So I took some notes. I'm going to be looking down a little bit here and there, but maybe if anyone else is looking to travel from Texas to Orlando and you don't want to do it in one day, which we did one year, and it's not preferred, it's not recommended. We were exhausted. This time we actually traveled for about 13 hours to Tallahassee, and then from there we went to Disney the next day. But let me start with that. So the drive there, we're going to start with stage one was the drive up to Florida and what that all entailed. And so our first trip was all the way to Tallahassee. It almost took us 13 hours to get there. Part of the reason that it took us a while to get there too is because we actually stopped a few more times this time up there. And I'm not just talking about like gas stations. We went to Target, I think a couple of times, did some walkarounds at Target just to kind of get out and not just go to the restroom, but to get out and like take a break from the drive. And I think it helped us a lot this time. It felt like the trip wasn't as long, even though the trip was a little bit longer. So I would totally recommend, especially if you're leaving like early morning. We left at like 5 in the morning. And so by the time we got to Louisiana, you know, it was still like late morning, early afternoon, and we were able to stop at a Target and get a walk in. So I would recommend that type of thing. As far as gas stations go, we don't really have like any specific gas stations that we stop at. I know there's apps like Gas Buddy and stuff. You can use those if you really want to like nail down where you're gonna stop, where the cheapest gas is and stuff like that. I would just look for the cheapest gas as I was driving and kind of notice like, oh, gas is going up a little bit now. We should probably stop before we go further. So, but yeah, for the trip up there, I would totally recommend getting out a couple times. And our stop was at Tallahassee. Yeah, we got there close to, I want to say maybe like 9 o'clock. I'm thinking 13 hours. I'm thinking that's around like 9 or 10. And of course it was already dark when we got there. But when we got there, we were tired, but we were not exhausted. And this time we stayed at a Marriott because my sister-in-law had a free night there. In the past, we've stayed at Home 2 Suites, and Home 2 Suites I actually recommend the most, especially if you have a large family. We have 6 in our family, and Home 2 Suites has suites that sleep 6 people. So they have two queen size beds, there might be king size beds, and then a pull-out couch. And so there's plenty of room. They have a little kitchenette, so if you bring food with you, you can refreeze your ice packs. You can put your food into the fridge, get it chilled a little bit more than what it was in the ice chest. Bathroom, TV, drawers, the whole thing. We're only there for a night, so we don't really use a ton of that stuff, but we do use the kitchen, the little kitchenette, so that we can like refreeze ice packs and that type of thing. Okay, so for this trip, we learned that Emma has car sickness. So Emma's 8 years old. If you have any young ones and you have not experienced car sickness with your young one, just buy Dramamine, Junior Dramamine, whatever it's called, just for backup, because when we learned it, it was kind of too late. So you know what happened and what started happening in the car. We stopped. That's the reason we stopped at Target. When we stopped at Target, we were like, let's get some Dramamine. We got her some, and the rest of the trip was great. Like no issues at all. And also we told her, hey, when we're like taking off before we get on the highway, do not look at your iPad. That is the time you're going to be looking forward. So Dramamine, all the meds that you usually take for your kids, but I would totally recommend motion sickness stuff, especially if you're driving, because the kids are looking at iPads and they're might get sick. As far as, you know, stops for food and stuff like that, we actually took a ton of snacks, a ton of drinks. We had sandwiches, we had bread, meat, cheese, mayonnaise, mustard, that type of stuff. And we took one of our small little, I think it's an Arctic cooler, but one of the very insulated coolers. It's probably maybe like 2 feet by 1 foot, so it's not huge. Fit into our back of the Telluride, and that's where we kept the majority of the cold food. And then we also had like a huge bag of like dry snacks, like granola bars, little pouches with chips in there, little pouches with pistachios, just different types of snacks that the kids would want, that the kids had asked for. And we did a lot of snacks on the way up there, and then for food we did sandwiches. In the past we've kind of done both, where we were like, let's stop at a Wendy's or something like that, just a quick stop. this time we wanted to like lessen the amount of time that we stopped for food. And so we actually made some of our food on the drive, or when we were at Target, we actually made a sandwich. We had a sandwich stop, I'll call it that, when we were at Target after we did our walk. So that's what we did. If you want to spend the extra money for like, Wendy's, McDonald's, or stop and actually go to a restaurant, that you can do that too. Okay, so by the time we got to Disney World, we got to Tallahassee that first night, and then the next day it took us about 4 or 5 hours to get to Orlando. We stayed at the Treehouse Villas this time at Saratoga. I think it's at Saratoga Springs. Let me Google that. Yeah, Treehouse Villas at Saratoga Springs. So this was a different experience for us because we've usually have stayed there's once we stayed off Disney property at the Home 2 Suites, which is actually amazing, by the way. If you have to stay off property and you want it as cheap as possible, that's a good place to stay. And I think it's the one at Flamingo Crossing, and it's right outside Disney World. So it's right next to Disney World. If you're staying on Disney property, we have stayed at some of the value resorts. One of my favorites has been Port Orleans. I think we stayed at Riverside, and I loved that resort, still do. Treehouse Villas was a lot of fun. It was different, but I really liked it. There was some stuff I really liked, and there was some stuff I didn't like at all. The pros: it is secluded, it is quiet, it is like separate further in the back from Saratoga Springs, like the actual Saratoga Springs resort. And the tree houses are kind of like, there's 2 that are kind of next to each other, and then there's some distance, and there's another 2. So they're basically set up in pairs of 2, but there's still enough distance that you're not like looking right at your neighbor. Tons of space. What else? The most amazing thing that I liked about it is that it almost felt like an Airbnb, because you have a full kitchen, you have washer dryer, you have actual bedrooms. And so we had a total of, let me think here, 3 bedrooms. And then in the living room, you have a pull-out couch, and you also have a pull-out bed. It's like a single bed, like a twin size bed. The 2 bedrooms, when you first enter the non-primary rooms, one has a bunk bed in there, the other one has a queen size bed, I want to say. And then the primary room, it has its own bathroom. It has this amazing area that is right in front. It's curtained, but it's just full length windows that you can see out and stuff like that. And it also has a queen size bed. So just tons of space. There's a lot of space. It felt nice whenever we got back from the resort, and we didn't have to worry about like people above us or below us or next to us. It was just nice and secluded, and it felt like we were coming to our own place. So as far as cons go, and this kind of mixes with the pros a little bit, because of that seclusion and that space that you get, you feel very separate from the resort. So like if you want to go swimming, if you want to go check out what food they have at the food court, if you want to go look at the stores to see what you can buy there, it is like a walk. Either you want to get on the bus and go to the front of Saratoga Springs, or you're going to have to take a very long walk to get to the actual Saratoga Springs resort area to do that kind of stuff. So the pool that's nearby was very small. Like they have their own pool at Treehouse Villas, but it was very small. It looked like something that if you went to like a campground, maybe they would just have like a big rectangle pool. That's what it was like. Like it was, if you wanted to go and cool down, it was great, but there wasn't any extra amenities to it or anything like that. Oh, the other big one, this was a big thing. The bus system at the Treehouse Villas is not the best. I would actually say it's like pending terrible. So the way that it works is that there is a bus that goes from Treehouse Villas to the front of Saratoga Springs. There's no Saratoga Springs bus that comes from like a resort that would come to pick you up and just take you to the parks. And so if you want to go to the parks, you have to get on the Treehouse Villas bus that will take you to the front of Saratoga Springs. And then you get dropped off there and you wait for a bus to go to the parks or to downtown Disney or anything like that. And the same also applies once you leave the park or if you leave downtown Disney. It'll take you back to the Saratoga Springs resort, and then you have to get off the bus and then wait for the bus that will then take you to the Treehouse Villas resort area. So that can take, just depending on when you get there, it can be, I think as quick as like 10 to 15 minutes. I think that was the fastest we waited. One time it had just left when we got dropped off, and we waited like a good 30 minutes or maybe a little bit longer than that. So if you're really big on the bus and being like to your areas that you're scheduled to go to at a specific time. Like, you really have to be on top of that, or you're just gonna have to plan to be like, hey, we're gonna be late. And that's kind of the route that we took, is that, okay, cool, if we really want to get to, you know, if we had a appointment for a food place in the morning, then we got up extra early just to be, just to be safe. There's also a lot of situations too where we would just drive our car up to the front of Saratoga Springs and just get on the bus to any of the parks from the front of Saratoga Springs. So that's an option too, but it means that we had to get in our car every day. We had to leave the parking spot that we had every day. And the way that the way that Treehouse Villas works with parking is that there's parking areas in front of your treehouse, but it's not like guaranteed that you can park there. So there was a few times when we got there and there was no parking, so we'd have to go and find another parking spot. But that was a big negative about the Treehouse Villas, was the bus system. As far as going home is also a chore, because we usually will spend a day at the park, and we might leave around 3 or 4 in the afternoon to start a drive back home to Texas. Some of y'all might think that's crazy, and I think it might be a little crazy too, but we want to maximize our time at Disney, so that's what we do. This last time, instead of going to the park the last day, we actually saved our last day for Disney Springs. And it was so much better that way. The nice thing about it is that when you go to Disney Springs, we were doing our last minute shopping. Any of the big items that the kids wanted to get, that was the day that we were gonna do it. And by the time that we got there in the morning, I think it was like maybe 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. We were there for maybe 3 hours. We were probably done by maybe 1, maybe 2 o'clock at the latest. And we were like, all right, cool, let's go home. So it doesn't feel like you're wasting a park day, because that's one reason that when we did park days on the last day, we'd stay as late as we could, because we're like, we paid for today. And we don't want to just leave early and then feel like we lost value. So I would recommend the last day doing your Disney Springs day, or if you're done with Disney, just wake up early in the morning, start driving home. But when it comes to driving home, since we leave later in the afternoon, we will usually try to find a spot somewhere like right before the middle, where you'd be the middle of between Texas and Florida. And so for this time, we didn't make any reservations anywhere, which has always been just like the thing that hurts us the most. We've done that before in the past, and one time there was a baseball game, a baseball tournament in the general area that we wanted to stop, and so there was no hotels for us to stop at. This time around, we lucked out. I stopped at a couple hotels and they're like, hey, we're all booked up. It was probably like 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock at night. And finally we stopped at a Hampton Inn and Suites at Gulfport, Mississippi. Shout out to Melissa if she ever watches this. That lady was amazing. So we stopped there. Initially she was like, hey, I don't have anything that's open. And then she looked again and she goes, hey, I have a suite. And usually they reserve it for like big wigs that come last minute type of thing. But it was almost midnight, and so she goes, hey, I can give it to you. I think we paid like, I want to say it was like a couple $100, but it slept a total of 6. It had 2 queen size beds, and then it also had a pull-out couch, and it was a huge room. Big table down the middle, like desk table down the middle, and it was the best sleep of our life because we were tired. So we actually drove from Orlando to Gulfport, Mississippi, stayed at the Hampton Inn and Suites. They have a continental breakfast in the morning, which is actually pretty good. And then that trip, that little length of a trip is about 8 hours from Disney to Gulfport, Mississippi. And then when we wake up in the morning, it was another 8 hours to get to San Antonio. So it just broke up the trip just right, so that we were able to spend that amount of time at Disney Springs in the morning, leave early afternoon, drive, and I guess we did leave later than 2, because 8 hours, we probably left closer to like 4. But it was a fun trip. We had a good time. Now I feel like we have our routine scheduled out for us next time. So, like, I think it's always gonna be the place that we stop on the way up is always going to be Tallahassee. We're probably always going to stay at a Home 2 Suites because it sleeps like all 6 of us. The Marriott was nice because my sister-in-law did have it for free, but we had to split up between like 2 rooms because they only sleep a total of 4 people in each room. They might have 6, but they didn't have 6 for that day. Home 2 Suites, they always have 6. They always have 6 available whenever we stay there. So that's usually our place that we stop since we have a large family. And then next time we go, as far as where we stay, I think it's just going to depend on where the most value is at. Treehouse Villas was a lot of fun. I don't know if I'd want to stay there again unless they just had a really crazy deal. I just really like the environment of being like in the resort and not like on the outskirts of it, because we were still part of it, but it just didn't feel the same. But I just loved the room that we had. Like there was so much room. That part I loved a lot. But if I could find that at another resort that was more, I felt more included in the resort, then I would probably pick that. And then on the way back, no matter what time you leave, if you're leaving from Orlando, Gulfport, Mississippi is a great place to stop at. Hampton Inn and Suites was where we stayed at, but there was also 2 other hotels nearby. I think one of them was a Home 2 Suites, but they were booked, and I forgot what the other one was, but there's 3 hotels all stacked together there in Gulfport, Mississippi. 8 hours from Orlando, and then if you're coming back to Texas, if you come back to San Antonio, 8 hours. Texas is huge, so it could take you longer, but 8 hours the next day to get back home, and we left, I wanna say around like maybe 10 or 11 o'clock, so we were home evening, you know, early night, late evening hour, so it was great. But that is my breakdown of the trip of this summer's Disney trip. So it was a lot of fun. I think we have everything ironed out for the future now, and I just wanted to share that with you guys in case anyone is going from Texas to Orlando or coming from Orlando back to San Antonio area. But anyways, hopefully this helps you out whenever you make your trip to Disney and choose where you're gonna stop and stuff like that. But if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. If you have any comments about where we stopped or any recommendations for us that maybe I missed, hit me up in the comments and let me know those as well. And again, thanks for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.